Journalism survives on trust, not just trust of the public who consumes the news, but from their sources who trust journalists, sometimes even with their freedom. This is Earl Caldwell. In the early 1970s, he was one of the only black reporters at the New York Times, but he was also a pioneer in a different respect. He was covering the Black Panthers movement at the time, and the Nixon administration was ramping up its war on journalism, similar to what we are seeing today. Caldwell was subpoenaed by the Nixon administration. The government demanded that he testify against one of his sources. In the early 1970s, subpoenas to journalists were rare, but under the Nixon administration, they exploded. It put reporters in this impossible position: either comply with a legal request and potentially ruin the trust of all whistleblowers, or refuse to comply and don't testify and potentially go to jail. Caldwell decided it was paramount to keep this trust, even if it meant spending time behind bars. So he refused to comply. His case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and in a bitterly divided decision, the panel of justices ruled that, at least in the cases before them, journalists could not refuse to testify in cases like doctors and lawyers and therapists actually can. Thankfully, Caldwell didn't have to go to jail in his case, but in the next few decades, dozens of reporters would follow in his footsteps, and actually would. It was in the name of protecting their sources. They engaged in one of the most effective civil disobedience campaigns we've seen since the Civil Rights era. And it actually worked. States passed what are known as reporters' shield laws, which gave them the right to refuse testimony in a lot of cases. And the Justice Department was afraid to subpoena journalists because they didn't want a long and protracted legal fight playing out on the front pages of the papers. It didn't completely solve the problem. Reporters still occasionally receive subpoenas today, but it definitely limited its effect. That is until a few years ago, when the federal government figured out that actually they don't need to have reporters testify to prosecute whistleblowers anymore. Because of advances in technology, they could use surveillance of emails, of phone calls, of people's movements to accomplish the same goal. In a famous case during the Obama era, the Justice Department demanded Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist James Risen testify against one of his sources. Like many before him, Risen refused, even said he would go to jail. After years of fighting, the government suddenly dropped their demand on the eve of the trial. Why? Well, it turned out that the government had secretly gained access to Risen's phone call records, his email records, his travel records, his credit card records, all without his knowledge. An official later remarked to the New York Times that the Risen subpoena is the last one you'll see. We know who you're talking to. Cell phones and the internet have made it easier than ever before for sources to communicate with journalists. After all, we wouldn't have had Edward Snowden in another era. But our reliance on third-party services like Google and Facebook and AT&T and Verizon means that governments can spy on us more without our knowledge. In other countries, the risk of technological surveillance literally means life or death. This is award-winning war correspondent Marie Colvin. She was tragically killed in 2012 in Syria when the Assad government tracked her movements via her satellite phone. So how can journalists protect themselves while still attempting to do their job in the 21st century? Well, at the same time that technology puts us at more risk, we can also use it to better protect ourselves, better than ever before. At Freedom of the Press Foundation, the organization that I founded in 2012, we build technology to help whistleblowers stay more anonymous and reporters more secure. So this is our project, Secure Drop. It's a whistleblower submission system that is in use at over 75 major news organizations worldwide, including the New York Times and the Washington Post. The idea behind Secure Drop is that we cannot stop governments from potentially serving unjust legal orders on reporters, but we can put the power back in journalists' hands. So Secure Drop eliminates third parties from the equation completely. The reporter owns their own Secure Drop server, and it's the only thing that people communicate through. So if a legal order does come, the reporters would again have the ability to refuse to comply, to contest it in court, or to do as they wish, not have the surveillance go on in secret. Reporters, and probably many people in this room, also now use Signal, the secure messaging system that encrypts text messages and phone calls end to end. And there are a variety of other tools that are just blossoming today that will hopefully help the next generation of reporters stay even safer. But there's still much danger. The Obama administration prosecuted more whistleblowers in their 8 years than any other administration in history. The Trump administration, as they remind us almost daily about their hatred of the media, is on pace to shatter that record. They have already prosecuted 5 whistleblowers and have have several dozen other cases open already. Getting information to the public when the government wants to keep it secret will always be a hard problem to solve, but it's also vital for our democracy. The First Amendment acts as a safety valve. When the checks and balances in government break down, brave federal employees can go to reporters who have the First Amendment right to publish information in the public interest. But if those whistleblowers can't stay safe and reporters fear they're constantly being spied on, it's not just an individual story or those individual people who lose, it's all of us. Thank you.